Skyrim is a land filled with noise, the clash of steel, the roars of dragons, and the ceaseless murmur of its people trying to survive in a frozen land. But far beyond that noise, beyond the cities and roads and reach of Jarls, there are places where silence reigns completely. One such place is Cliffside Retreat, a small cabin perched on a cliff southwest of Solitude, seemingly forgotten by both gods and men. It is one of the few locations in Skyrim that still feels alive, and yet utterly untouched. Inside lives a single woman, a nameless Nord hunter, alone but unbroken. She has no quest to offer, no dialogue of importance, no grand role in the fate of Skyrim. She simply exists, breathing quietly in the still air, tending to her craft and surviving one day at a time. Cliffside Retreat and its lone inhabitant together embody the forgotten edges of Skyrim. Not the ruins of the past or the victims of tragedy, but the living solitude of those who have chosen a quieter life, far from the chaos of the world. Cliffside Retreat is exactly what its name suggests, a retreat from everything. It stands high in the rocky wilds of Harfinger, its small chimney puffing faint smoke into the cold mountain air. To reach it, one must navigate a narrow, twisting path surrounded by wolves and bears, with no signposts or civilization to guide the way. The cabin itself is humble, a single room with a cooking pot, a bed and a few animal pelts, and the faint smell of smoke and pine. It's the kind of place easy to overlook, yet impossible to forget once found. The woman who lives here is often outside when you arrive, bow in hand, scanning the horizon for game. She greets no one, she neither attacks nor welcomes you. She simply exists, a reminder that not everyone in Skyrim seeks adventure or glory. Some seek only peace, however fragile. The Hunter of Cliffside Retreat has no name in the game's records. She is simply Hunter, a woman of few words and fewer needs. She hunts for food, crafts from the land, and lives off whatever she can gather from the wilderness. She is not aligned with any faction, not tied to any quest. She is one of Skyrim's rarest types of NPCs, a person who exists without reason in terms of the game's structure, but with great reason in the world's logic. She is the embodiment of Skyrim's quiet resilience. Many players overlook her entirely, others find her and assume she has a quest, a story, a hidden dialogue option, but there is none. When you speak to her, she offers the same brief, functional words as any hunter in the wild. And then, when you leave, she returns to her solitude, unbothered, unchanged. That makes her presence hauntingly beautiful. In a land obsessed with prophecy, her existence is purely human. She is not meant to change the world. She's simply trying to live in it. It's easy to mistake isolation for tragedy, but in Cliffside Retreat, the silence feels intentional. Unlike other remote NPCs who have been stranded or cursed, this hunter seems at peace with her seclusion. Her cabin is neat, her tools well kept, her life orderly. The sense is not of exile, but of choice. She chose to leave behind the bustle of the cities, the danger of politics, and the noise of other people. There is dignity in that choice. While most of Skyrim's people cling to the protection of walls and guards, she stands alone in the wild, surviving without need for anyone. It's a life that is difficult, dangerous, and yet deeply authentic, the purest reflection of Skyrim's harsh beauty. In a world where dragons scorch towns and war tears apart families, perhaps solitude is the only sane response. Harfinger is one of Skyrim's most rugged regions. Its cliffs drop into misty valleys. Its forests echo with the calls of predators. The air is sharp, the light is thin, and the sound of the sea below constant. Cliffside Retreat sits right in the midst of this harsh beauty. From her porch, the hunter can see miles of wilderness, jagged peaks, rolling fog, and the faint glimmer of solitude far in the distance. But that city may as well be another world. The isolation here is physical and spiritual. It's not just that few visit, it's that few could. The path to her home is treacherous and unmarked, guarded by wolves and trolls. It's not designed for travellers, it's designed to keep them out. And so the hunter remains apart, existing in the narrow space between civilization and oblivion, where one misstep could send her tumbling into the rocks below. And yet she endures for all this time. In most of Skyrim, every NPC exists for a reason, a quest, a piece of lore, a task. But the Hunter of Cliffside Retreat has no such function. You can sell items to her or give information, but that's about it. She's not part of any questline or hidden narrative. And that is precisely what makes her remarkable. She represents the parts of the world that don't revolve around the player. The places and people that exist simply because the world would feel emptier without them. Her life, in a sense, gives Skyrim its soul. Without characters like her, nameless, quiet, and living entirely apart from the drama of dragons and politics, the world would feel staged. But because she exists, the illusion of a breathing world becomes real. She hunts, eats, sleeps, and survives. Not for you, not for a quest, but because that's what she does. That is her purpose, even if the game doesn't call it one. Despite her apparent contentment, there's an undeniable melancholy in her life. Skyrim's wilderness is not a kind place. The nights are long, the predators relentless, and the winters cruel. When you stand inside her cabin and hear the wind battering against the walls, it's hard not to imagine what those nights must be like. The loneliness, the fear, the unending silence. A single sound outside could mean a deer or a saber cat. Every decision becomes a matter of survival. And yet she stays. That resilience, quiet, uncelebrated, and entirely human, is what makes her one of Skyrim's most powerful characters. She doesn't slay dragons, but she defeats the cold every morning. She doesn't shout through them, but she endures storms. Her story isn't told through quests, but through a continued existence in a world designed to crush the weak. There is, however, a strange peace in her isolation. In a land constantly torn apart by war and prophecy, she has escaped it all. She owes allegiance to no Jarl. She pays no taxes. No soldiers march past her door. The troubles of the world end at her cliff's edge. In that sense, she is freer than any other person in Skyrim. Her solitude is not punishment, it is liberation. She lives in balance with the land, untouched by the greed and violence that define so much of the province. Perhaps she knows something the rest of Skyrim does not. That to live quietly is sometimes the greatest rebellion of all. It's easy to imagine a future where the Dragonborn turns Cliffside Retreat into something more. Not a fort or a settlement, but a home. The cabin's location makes it perfect for peace, overlooking breathtaking vistas, shielded from roads and politics alike. With little work, it could become a sanctuary, a hunting lodge or a refuge for those wary to Skyrim's endless conflict. Perhaps even the hunter herself could become a companion or a teacher, passing on her quiet wisdom about the land, the animals, and the survival herself. Her story doesn't need tragedy, it deserves continuation. But for now, she remains what she has always been, a ghost of the living world, content to be forgotten. In a land obsessed with glory, she embodies the rarest kind of power, the strength to live unseen, the courage to be alone, and the grace to endure without recognition. Despite her strength, it's impossible not to feel that the world has forgotten her. No one comes to visit, no one mentions her in passing. She will never be remembered in songs or books. When the dragon passes by, she might exchange a few brief words, but then the player moves on, and she remains, her life unchanging. And perhaps that is her tragedy. She lives in one of the most beautiful and secluded spots in Skyrim, but beauty without companionship becomes a kind of curse. The cliffs, the trees, and the sky are her only witnesses. If she ever once lived in a city or had a family, that part of her life has been buried beneath years of solitude. Now there is only the hunt, only the silence, only the wind through the pines. Cliffside Retreat stands unchanged, its lone chimney still smoking against the cold. The hunter moves through her days like a shadow, each one blending into the next. She will never be written into the history books, nor sung of by bards. Yet in her quiet endurance, she represents something far greater than any legend. the soul of Skyrim itself, harsh, silent, beautiful, and unyielding. The most deserted NPC and place in all of Skyrim are not tragic because they are forgotten. They are powerful because they continue, even when no one is watching.